Hi friends, welcome to our channel. In this video, we are going to discuss about two interfaces from Servlet API. So one is ServletConfig and another one is ServletContext. So before getting into these two interfaces, so one thing we have to understand about web.xml file. So while creating a web project, so we will be selecting web module version as 2.5. Even in our previous video also, we have done the same thing. So while we are creating a project, we have selected web module version as 2.5. Since we have selected web module version 2.5, it will be creating a file called web.xml file. You can look at my project. I am using the same project so which I used in my previous video. I have a sublet login sublet and I have a web.xml file inside my webinf folder. So let me check this web.xml file and we'll understand what actually it is storing or carrying the data. You can look at the web.xml file. I have one and only sublet, login sublet, and for that particular sublet, it's maintaining two tag sublet hyphen mapping to map the sublet, and it has a sublet tag, and the sublet tag is coming with the location of my sublet. For example, my login sublet is inside com.valan.sublet package. So, which means one thing we have to understand here when we are creating a new servlet in our web project, so by default it is adding entry in our web.xml file. So, which means for each sublet creation, it will add an entry in our web.xml file. So right now I have only one sublet, nothing but login sublet. I have an entry in my web.xml file for a login sublet, nothing but sublet hyphen mapping as well as sublet. I mean sublet tag, which is coming with the full package and class name of the sublet. So let us do one thing. Let us create one more sublet. Let me close this web.xml file as of now. Let me create one more sublet. I'm right clicking on my package and I'm saying that I want to create a new sublet. And it is asking me to enter my sublet name. Let me enter the sublet name as my sublet. And then I will say next and I will say next and I'm saying that I want to inherit a do post method. So as of now, I'm just inheriting and overriding do get method in this particular sublet. Just to reduce the length, I'm just removing these unwanted codes. So right now you can look at my sublet, friends. I have only do get method. And let me check my web.xml file once again. Previously, I have an entry only for login sublet, but right now you can look at my web.xml file. I have an entry for my sublet as well. Again, two tags are coming sublet mapping and the sublet. So, finally, one thing we have to be very clear that when we are creating a new sublet or for each and every sublet creation, it will be adding a entry in our web.xml file, nothing but sublet mapping and the sublet tag which will specify your location of the sublet. So now let me use this sublet. So let me use this my sublet, and with the help of this sublet file we can understand what is sublet config and sublet context interface. So first we'll do one thing. So we'll understand what is sublet config. So sublet config is nothing but it's like a private area to the particular sublet. In a web application, there may be multiple sublet. In a web application, there may be a multiple sublet. For each sublet, there is a private area. So to access that private area, yes, I can go with sublet config interface. So let me do one thing. Let me go to my web.xml file, and in the web.xml file, yes, I have a sublet tag for my sublet. So here you can look at my code very carefully. Inside this particular sublet tag, you can look at my web.xml file. I have a separate sublet tag for my sublet, as well as I have a separate tag for login sublet. So right now what I am going to, inside this my sublet tag, I am saying that I want to pass some private input to my sublet. So nothing but it should visible only to my sublet. So how we are passing the input? It's very simple. I can say init param tag. Inside this, I can say param name and param value. I'm saying that inside this particular sublet tag, you can look at the code very carefully, friend. I'm writing this init param inside my sublet tag. So which means it's a private input which will be visible only to my sublet. So inside this, I'm saying that I want to pass one initial parameter to my sublet. Let it be the parameter name is f name, and you can look at the parameter name. It's everything is small letter f name, and I'm saying that the value is, let it be Valan, and I saved my web.xml file. So finally, this is a private input for this particular sublet called my sublet. So how to access this private input? It's very simple. I have to go for the sublet config interface. Since it's a interface, as we already familiar, yes, it's a interface, which means I cannot create a object by using new keyword. So I'm just creating a reference for my sublet config. Let me say the interface name, sorry, the reference name is config. So then how to initialize this sublet config? It's very simple. I can say request dot. I can do one thing. Even I think I know it to use a request object itself. Simply I can say get sublet config, which is the life cycle of sublet interface. So by default, this HTTP sublet is implementing sublet interface. In the sublet interface, we have a lifecycle method called get sublet config. So directly I can call that particular method, and so that method is going to return our ServletConfig object. So now my ServletConfig object is ready. You can see ServletConfig is a predefined interface from javax.servlet package. And by using this object, I can read the value. So what I am going to read? I am going to read the first name. So how to read? Very simple. I can say config dot get init parameter. And what is the name of the parameter? Let me check my web.xml file. As per my web.xml file, the parameter, I mean the initial parameter name is fname, and it's only for this my sublet. So I will say I'm trying to read the initial parameter from the attribute or name called fname, and I want to display it. So what I will do, let me create an object for print writer. Yes, you know, if you want to display something on the browser, I need to create an object for print writer, and I'm displaying the value. Let it be out.println font color equal to, let it be green, and let me make it as bold. I will say first name equal, so the value whatever I have read, let it be first name, and it's better to close our tag. I'm just closing the tags properly, and as we know already, at the end it's better to close our out object as well. I'm just closing. Finally, you can look at the code team. It's very simple. ServletConfig is the interface. With the help of the ServletConfig interface object, I can read a private input for a particular sublet. So how we are passing the input? In the web.xml file, for each sublet we have a separate tag called sublet. In the sublet tag we are passing our parameter name along with value by using init param. So finally you can see this init param is a tag which is inside this particular sublet tag. So that's why I can say it's a private input only for my sublet. So finally, how to access it? Very simple. We will be initializing servlet config object with the help of servlet interface method get servlet config, and with the help of that servlet config object I can invoke a method get init parameter, and within double quote as usual I need to pass my parameter name. So with the help of that I can read the input and I can display it. So now definitely you will be getting another question. Suppose in a particular situation, if I want to pass one more data, one more input. For example, let us assume like this. I want to pass last name as well. So how to access last name or how to pass multiple input in case of servlet config? It's very simple. I will go to same web.xml file. I will be copy pasting the same code inside same sublet tag, and this time I will say the parameter name is, for example, L name. Maybe the value is, let it be Arasu. Finally, with the help of this init param tag, yes, I can pass a number of initial parameter to a particular sublet. How to access these input in a particular sublet? Since these all are sending for the particular sublet, I need to come with sublet config. Sublet config. With the help of sublet config, yes, I can access it. So let me copy paste the same code to access my last name. I will say this is my last name variable and I'm accessing the parameter with the help of L name. Let me verify it in my web.xml file. Yeah, first name is F name and last name is L name. And in my output, let me display with different color. Let me put it as color as blue and let me display in the new line and I want to display the value of L name. Sorry, as per my code, it is last name. And I will do one thing instead of do get, I will make this method as service. Yes, right now I'm not using any forms. So if I'm using forms, yes, you know that in the form method I can specify whether I want to call get or post. But right now my intention is I don't want to create any form. So that's why I will make this method as service so that it will directly run this service method so that we can verify our output. Let us run this code and we'll verify our output whether it is displaying our first name and last name with the help of ServletConfig or not. I'm just running this code. Yeah, it's starting my Tomcat web server. Yeah, you can look at the output. It is displaying my first name as Valan and last name as Harasu, which I have mentioned in my web.xml file with the help of init param tag. So, hope friends, you got idea about what is Servlet config. So finally, Servlet config is the interface. With the help of the Servlet config object, yes, I can access my private input for a particular servlet. So now let us get into the another thing, nothing but servlet context. So already we are clear about what is servlet config. So now the next one is servlet context. Servlet context is nothing but it's a global or public area. Servlet config is a private area for a particular servlet. But servlet context is a global or public area for the entire servlet in a web application. So in a web application, I may have a number of servlet. So for example, right now in this particular web application, yes, I have only two servlet. But in a real life application, so definitely in a single web application, there may be a multiple servlet. So if I want to pass a private input to a particular servlet, then yes, I can go for servlet config. But if I want to pass some common data or input to the entire servlet in a web application, then I can go for servlet context. So how we will pass that input? You can look at our servlet config input. Since it's a private input for a particular servlet, we are passing our input inside a particular servlet tag. Yes, it's a private input. It's only for particular servlet. But now we are going to send a global or common input which can be accessible to the entire servlet within that particular application. So which means so we will be mentioning our input as global above all my servlet tag. not a particular sublet tag. Above all my sublet tag, I will be using a tag called context para. So which means it's a common input for all the sublet. So how I will specify my inputs? Very simple. Same param name. Let it be the param name is, let it be organization, and value also I have to specify. Param value is, let it be ABC. Finally, this is a common input. You can see I'm defining this input outside of all the sublet, which means it is a common input for all the sublet. But previously, what we have done, we have defined our input, or we have passed our input inside a particular sublet tag. So that's why I can say it's a private input. But now, what we are doing, we are defining our input as globally. So which means it is going to be common to all the sublet. So now how to access this? Let me use the same sublet and I will show you how to access it. So let me create a reference for sublet context. Again, sublet context is a predefined interface from javax.sublet package. How to initialize this reference? Yes, interface the declaration. We cannot create the object. How to initialize it? Very simple. I can say get sublet context. Again, like get sublet config. This is also one of the method from sublet interface. So how to read the input? Let me read the input. Let me declare a variable string organization equal same context dot get init param, and what is the parameter name? As per my web.xml file, you can look at the parameter name is organization. So it's a case sensitive, so it's better I will copy paste it, and I can display my value, I mean organization value, just to check my output. I'm just displaying it in a new line, and I'm saying that the color should be, let it be red, and I will say that organization name is this particular variable. So let me save this code and let me run the program once again, and we'll understand or will verify our output whether it is displaying our organization details or not. It's asking me to restart the server. Let me restart the server. See, you can look at the output. So first name and last name I'm getting with the help of ServletConfig. Yes, it's a private input. But in case of organization name, I'm getting this input with the help of ServletContext. Yes, I have defined this input as a global in my web.xml file. So you can look at my web.xml file. The first name and last name I have written inside particular sublet tag. But you can look at my sublet context, I mean organization name. You can look at, I have defined this outside of the sublet tag, which means it is common to the entire application. So now definitely you may get a question. In case of sublet config, We have passed two input, first name and last name, with the help of rewriting the same init param tag inside sublet tag. So then how to pass multiple input in case of context param? It's very simple. You will be copy pasting the same code. So let me say this time location, and maybe I can give some location name, let it be XYZ. So like this, you can pass a number of sublet config or context input for the particular sublet. So how to access this location? Very simple. I will go back to my code and I will say I need another one variable. Let it be the variable name is location, and name of the parameter is location. I hope L is capital. Let me confirm with my web.xml file. Yes, location L is capital. And yes, I can copy paste the same code to display my location as well. Maybe let me give a new color. Let it be pink, and I will say location name is this particular variable value. And let me save the code and let me run this output. So this time it has to display location as well. Yeah, you can see maybe the color is pink. That's why it's little light. You can look at the output. It is displaying first name and last name, nothing but my private input. How I am accessing the private input? With the help of ServletConfig. But the organization name and the location name is global input for all the sublet. So how I will access global input? With the help of sublet context. And this is a way how to initialize your sublet config and context to access their input. And parallelly you can have a look on our web.xml file as well. So this is a way to pass our global input outside of the sublet tag. And if I want to pass a private input, then inside particular sublet tag, I will be sending my input with the help of init param. So hope friends, we are clear about what is sublet config and sublet context. Thanks friends for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe and click on the bell symbol so that as soon as I upload a new video, you will be getting the notification. Also, you can share it with your friends.